We've had a survey of innate behavior, and there's no question that some of it we must push back against with training if your dog is going to live in human society. And much of this is under the heading impulse control. What exactly do I mean by impulse control? Dogs are relatively impulsive animals. A squirrel runs, they chase. You come home, they greet explosively. You open the door, they charge through. They find a 3-day-old piece of sandwich on the sidewalk, they eat it. Dogs have significant selection history as opportunistic scavengers. They have a ready regurgitation reflex, which you likely have been treated to if you've had dogs for any length of time. They can afford an eat first, regurgitate later philosophy of life. They are much less penalized by dietary indiscretion than, say, cats. Because all this flies in the face of our cultural norms and can pose safety hazards, we need to actively teach dogs to cool their jets, which means in this course we will devote 4 lessons to building your dog's impulse control musculature. This set of behaviors is cumulative, so even if you like to skip around, do the next 4 lessons on impulse control in order. Your dog is going to learn sit and down stay, leave it, to not touch food or junk he finds, wait at doorways, to walk without pulling on leash, and some extra common called distraction proofing. Because these behaviors are related, they inform each other. We get to capitalize on what in animal learning theory is called learning set. This is kind of meta-learning, learning to learn similar tasks. In this case, that circumspection, holding back, waiting, not succumbing to impulse, that is a strategy that really works. Our first 2 behaviors are downstay and sit-stay. The big ticket parameters, what in trainer jargon we call the money parameters, how trainers earn their money, are 3: distraction, distance, and duration. One thing you're going to notice right off the bat is that we do distraction first and duration last. If you did traditional obedience classes 20 years ago, this is going to feel foreign. In the old days, we often did duration first and distractions last, or distance first, then duration, then distractions. So why this parameter order? The reason is important. It supports the best and most efficient rate of reinforcement. Duration is by definition what we call the rate killer. Think about it. If you do a modest 15-second stay, your maximum rate of reinforcement is 4 per minute. And this assumes the dog gets every trial right and there is 0 latency between trials. By contrast, I can punch out 10, 12, or 15 close-up, brief distraction reps in a minute. I can also cover modest distances quickly. Put it this way, I have to do distraction and distance anyway. Let's punch out the quick-to-recycle reps early on and leave the rate-eating parameter for the more intermediate dog. That's smart, strategic training. So as you'll see shortly, I'll be starting Lulu with distractions. This is our first downstay session with Lulu, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll her onto one hip because I have a slightly better chance of making my timing if she is rolled. I'm going to watch her rear right leg. First, too bad. 0 for 1. Good girl. 1 for 2. This is a 1 second. Notice that I'm holding the food within striking distance. I'm not holding it up here. Holding it here. Good girl. 2 for 3. Good girl. 3 for 4. This is formidable. 4 for 5. Very good. 3 seconds. 1, 2, too bad. 0 for 1. 1, 2, 3. 1 for 2. 1, 2, 3. Good girl. Ooh, boy, that was cutting it a bit fine. Oh, too bad. I'm going to roll her again. I'm on a 2 for 4. Whoops, too bad. And that's a 2 for 5, which means I'm going to drop back to 1 second. But first, I'm going to get her onto one hip rather than a sphinx down. 1001, good girl. Rate of reinforcement is my friend here. And I will be in the Goldilocks zone if I don't take coffee breaks between repetitions. Good girl. There's a 3 for 3, 4 for 4, 5 for 5. 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Who's good? 1, 2, 3. 3 for 3. 1, 2, 3. 4 for 4. 1, 2, 3. 5 for 5. 1 second on the floor, and I'm going to be ready to cover it with either my hand or my foot if and when she breaks. 1,000. Too bad. 0 for 1. I'm going to reposition her to her hip. Good. 1 for 2. Oh, too bad. You notice that I was a little bit thought police there. Maybe she would have made it, but if I had fudged it and given it to her, I very well might have been rewarding her intention to break. And so it's actually better to be a bit on the strict side. So that's a 1 for 3. Good girl. 2 for 4. That's going to pay me off in the long run if I don't try and manufacture winner trials. There we go. I think this is a 3 for 5. Let me do one more set. 1,001. Good girl. 2 for 2. This is a discretionary stick. Good. You can pay her. The one on the floor or the one in your hand. That was a really good start at downstay. Now I'm going to repeat this exact same process for my first 3 steps of sit stay. So first, let me get her into a sit. She's all dug in now, which is very, very good. This is a very impulsive dog, and these impulse control exercises are exactly what she most needs. Okay, release her. See if I can, okay, you can move now. She's like, the answer is don't move. And say, it is, but now it's going to be this one. 1,001, too bad. Good girl. Okay, I was thought police there. Good girl. 2 for 3, 3 for 4. Too bad. Now she goes down, she didn't break the stay, so I'm gonna give it to her. I'm not gonna do this forever, but for this very first session, that is a lesser error than actually going for the food. That's just sort of an innocent mistake rather than that she was having impure thoughts about breaking the stay. Good girl. This is inevitably confusing because if you remember, initially we were prompting positions and targeting and everything by having her follow lures. And now we're teaching her sometimes you don't do that. The right answer is to resist temptation, which is what impulse control is about. They do catch on, but inevitably there's a little bit of confusion in learning. Good. So I'm going to do one discretionary stick set here. Good girl. 2 for 2. Whoops, too bad. Good girl, but I'm going to pay that because she did stay. Good girl. Whoops. I'm just going to reseat her. Good girl. Okay, that was a 2 for. There we go. 1, 2 for 2 on it on. Doing one extra set because she did give me some errors there. I'm just waiting for my SIT. There we go. Good girl. Good girl. 2 for 2. 3 for 3. 1,001. 4 for 4. 1,001. 5 for 5. 3 seconds. Who's my girl? All righty. Get my sit. Clever gal. 1, 2, 3. Clever girl. 1, 2, 3. 2 for 2. That was, see if that comes back to haunt me. 2, 3. Good girl. Sometimes when you make a gray area call like that, you get your answer on whether it was a good call on the subsequent repetitions. Whoops, hang on. I don't want that to be a winner. I want a position pay at all costs. So even if I make an error, I'm going to always pay her in a sit. 2, 3. There we go. Okay, I'm going to push to the floor now, and this is going to be a problem. It's going to probably prompt a down or prompt movement. Too bad. So I'm going to cancel. One is really tough because it's counterintuitive on so many levels. Not only must she hold a sit, she has to hold a sit with a treat that's down on the floor, and that used to mean go down, and boy, this is so complicated. Good girl. Whoops. Oh, trainer error. Oh, but I paid her. That was a save from everybody. 1001. Very good. Add another one. Good. And there's a 4 for 5. So that would be a push. So on my next session, I will be able to proceed on my sit-stay. There's inevitable confusion and conflation when you train multiple things. From the dog's perspective, sometimes I'm supposed to target food and other times it's a distraction I should resist. Seems unfair, but dogs cope just fine. He'll make innocent errors, but if you're on plan and changing criteria based on the numbers, he'll get it. Don't agonize, just keep training. Leave it, or don't touch, is a behavior that unpacks as the dog refraining from picking up or eating something he comes across. Might be a food accident in the kitchen, a piece of garbage on the street, or your cell phone on the ottoman. This is very against grain for dogs. And note that leave it is not the same thing as dropping something he's already picked up. It's not touching something in the first place. The method we're going to use is largely based on capturing. It requires you to notice him refraining, to notice his cessation of trying to get the treat, initially for just a split second. Let's have a go. Our next behavior is leave it, and the first step is that she pause and stop worrying at a treat in a closed hand. So for me, as the trainer, what I'm actually reinforcing is the absence of a behavior, and that can be slippery. It can feel slippery to train. And so what I'm doing is she knows there's a treat in there. Good girl, and she pauses. And when she pauses, just for 1 second, she stops worrying at it. That's the criteria. Good girl. Boy, she's being actually extremely good here. Okay. Good girl. And I don't care what she does. If she lifts her head, does something superstitious, as long as that pause, okay? And now your dog may very well, the first time you offer stuff in a closed hand, I've got a little handful of treats here, they might very well worry at it and paw and throw treats. Doesn't matter. As soon as they stop trying to get it and they just sort of go still, 1001, that's your cue to pay. And also notice that I'm paying from my other hand. The reason for this is I would like to develop a bias. My eventual behavior is going to be her leaving greasy paper towels that she finds. If she finds an animal carcass, if she finds chicken bones, anything at all that she comes across that I want her to not touch. I want her to bias away from it. So I can help myself not only by reinforcing her for her self-control, but I can also teach her that the reward always comes from me, always comes away from the distraction or from the thing that she's supposed to leave. And that's going to eventually develop a superstition. She's going to snap her head the way I want. So I'm building for the long haul. There we go. So she's now done at least a 5 for 5 as I was describing this. And so now my next step is to open my hand. So when I open my hand, if she goes for it, I simply close my hand. If she refrains from going for it for 1 second, I pay. Looks like this. 0 for 1. Good girl. 1 for 2. Okay. Now this, you'd think, boy, this is counterintuitive. When can she take it, when can she not? Dogs are really good at very specific case learning. She's going to learn the difference between something that is really, truly offered to her. If you look at the difference, it's something that's right there, and then I actually say, here, have one. You can also use a verbal cue, but I prefer not to. The less sort of talking that people do while they're training, the more they get into the right habit, which is focusing on consequences. Good girl. Don't worry too much about antecedents. Girl. Okay, that's a stick. That was a 3 for 5. Good girl. That was a 1. Good girl. Who's good? That's a very good girl. Good girl. She's doing exceptionally well. This is formidable, and this is not her strong suit, impulse control. She's a very sort of quick, impulsive type dog. Very good girl. Okay, that was at least a 5 for 5. Now, I'm going to do 3 seconds and be ready to close if she goes for it. So let me just reload. Thank you for staying. She's actually holding a little downstay for me. So I'm going to capture that. 1, 2, 3. Clever girl. If she had gone for it, just close your hand. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to pull it away. All you need to do is close your hand. 1, 2, 3. She's already biased, and she's got her eyes on my other hand. This is one smart dog. 3 for 3. 1, 2, 3. There's a 4 for 4. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That was really, really good. Don't forget, if your dog is taking longer, that's really normal. Lulu is a very smart dog, and she's just learning things at almost an incredible rate. She's probably like the highest quintile for dog learners. Our next behavior is wait, which means not charging through an open door. Practice on a safe door first, to the yard or other enclosed area. Then, when you get to doors to the street, the dog will have some initial training under his belt and your mechanics will be fluent. It's better to practice this off-leash using the door to prevent mistakes. One feature of weight training is that although we will attach a verbal cue, wait, to the behavior, we will also want the behavior to be a default, to happen even if we don't issue the cue. In other words, there are actually 2 cues, the word and the context itself. Any open door means wait to be released. There are not circumstances where we want our pets charging through doors and out of cars. You'll see a release cue that means, okay, you can go through now. There's no reason to not use something simple such as, okay. The money parameter in weight training is warm up. Once we've got the door open fully and a bit of duration on board, our work becomes getting the dog to perform the behavior without needing warm-up reps, reminders. This is because it's a behavior we want the dog to do perfectly, stone cold, on the very first rep of the day. So we'll deliberately incorporate warm-up as a parameter in our training plan. In the demo I'm going to do with Lulu, we're going to be using an artificial door in the studio. We're going to motivate her to charge through so that you can see the behavior that would likely happen at your house. We're about to practice our weighted door session with Lulu. And when you do this at home, you will be doing it either with a sliding door or with a doorknobby door. Because we're in the studio here and we want you to see all the action, we've got this door set up. And instead of actually closing a door, I'm going to be using my body to simulate closing the door and opening the door. Okay, so that Lulu doesn't win at the speed game. I'm also going to be using an umbilical cord, which is a leash around my waist, but that's just insurance, just in case. It's my second line of defense. Similarly, I would like your first line of defense when you're practicing this at home to be the door itself. So when you're doing a half open door, the dog will attempt to charge, close the door. Be ready, because initially when you train this, they charge through. Of course they do. That's all they know. Okay, so you need to be really ready to close it. And so when you see Lulu, I'm going to be very much on my game for my initial set of reps. I'm going to practice her warmed up, and then later on, we'll practice cold. To simulate Lulu's desire to go out a regular door where there would be a yard or a walk on the other side, I'm going to be tossing food. And to simulate a half-closed door, I'm going to actually use my body. The leash here is a last resort only. When you're practicing, if you can possibly do it and you're on your game, try to practice without a leash. And if you do use a leash, try to do as I'm doing. Use an umbilical cord so that you've got your hands free for paying and for opening and closing the door. Okay, so here's step 1. The half closed door, I'm going to toss and I'm going to be ready because I know she's going to charge. There we go. That was a lucky save. There we go. Okay, that's an 0 for 1. Half open, pause, got lucky, a 1 for 2. Good. Whatever you do, make sure that the dog doesn't win the speed game, because if once they learn that they can, you're going to be up the creek. Good girl. 3 for 4. Good girl. 4 for 5. Okay, I'm going to push now to 1 second fully open, and I'm going to simulate fully open by just backing off. But once again, I need to be ready to block. 0 for 1, 1 for 2. So there's 1 second fully open. Good girl. 2 for 3. Who's clever? 3 for 4. Don't get greedy with the time just yet. 1001. And a 4 for 5. Let me push to 3 seconds. I'm going to do a fresh toss. And once again, this is going to increase her. Oh, what a good girl. I might have fudged my 3 seconds there because she did such a good job of waiting. So 1, 2, 3. Good girl. 1, 2, 3. Very good girl. When you're doing this exercise, sometimes you are going to grant, oh, too bad. There we go. That's a 4 for 5. When you're doing this exercise, you're going to, of course, because you need your dog to go out, sometimes grant what we call the organic reinforcer, which is the actual access to the yard or going out on the walk. But whenever you do this and you're about to go for a walk, practice a few weights first. And once the dog has given you, say, a nice set, a nice 4 for 5, then go ahead and grant the organic reinforcer, which I'm going to do now. I'm going to release her. Okay, which means you can now go through. So now that she's done this very well warmed up, my next step is to practice my 3 second wait, but to do it cold when she's not been practicing a bunch of repetitions. And what that means is I need to wait a good 24 hours and then practice and see what she does on the very first repetition of the day. Let's talk about loose leash walking. First, note that this is not the same as heeling. Heeling will be later, under tricks. Why? For companion dogs, honestly, heeling has zero utility. It was in pet dog training classes for decades because the curriculum was a trickle-down inheritance from competitive obedience trials where there's a heeling ad nauseum. What most people need is for their dog to have a reasonable set of leash manners, to stay in the vicinity and not pull. In fact, from a modern welfare and enrichment perspective, the point of walkies is not marching along, but what we trainers call going on sniffari. The dog gets to check out sights and smells along the way. Heeling, by definition, preempts this important sniffari function of walks. We're going to start by practicing our loose leash walking towards a defined goal. This way, we control when he's reinforced and when he's not. If we practice without this clear directional goal, he could very well collect sniffari prizes willy-nilly. This could mean reinforcement for pulling and absence of reinforcement for loose leash, and that's an uncontrolled contingency situation. Gives me nightmares as a dog trainer. So we're going to set things up so she learns that what we want. Not only that, but we're going to impose high fines. If Lulu pulls, not only does she not go forward, but we will start all over again. This is the difference between, say, a $10 parking ticket and a $300 parking ticket. It's a clear enough contingency, and we've got control, so we can afford this black and white regimen. Let me show you. We're going to practice loose leash walking with Lulu. And this is in dog training what we call a digital exercise, meaning there's just right and wrong. And for me, it makes it kind of simple. Whenever she tightens the leash, so if the leash is taut, I stop moving and I go back to the start. If the leash is loose, I keep walking and I don't fudge it. I don't go faster to try and mask any errors she makes, and we keep going. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a goal. This is too nebulous and too kind of fuzzy to train if we haven't got a clear goal that I know she's trying to get to. So it's not really impulse control if we're just kind of all over the map. So I'm going to actually put a little pile of treats here. You can practice this towards a toy, towards a smell on the ground, towards anything at all that your dog is attracted to. It's just an opportunity to train. I'm going to go to here. I'm going to standardize my leash length, and I'm going to do that by just holding on to it about here. Hold it close to my body so I'm not tempted to change the rules on her, and then we're going to start walking. Okay, so it's loose, I move, oh, it's tight, too bad. I commiserate with her, and we go back to start. It's loose, so I move. Oh, it's tight, too bad. We try again. It's loose, so I move. We make progress. Oh, and it's tight. So notice that I didn't mask her error. I saw the inevitable. She was about to tighten it, so I let her tighten it. I'm gonna wait till she stops barking. There we go, 1. Loose, it's loose. It's not too bad. Notice this sounds like it's, oh my God, I'm being so strict. But in fact, she's gonna learn better if I'm really, really consistent. Oh, too bad. Try again. Watch what's gonna happen in a couple more reps. She's barking because this is frustrating and it's difficult. She's conflicted. Too bad. Try again. Ready? I know it's very difficult. Try again. She's going to learn, boy, whatever you do, don't tighten that leash. 1. Oh, too bad. Try again. I'm on her side. She's not bad. She's just learning. Good girl. Very nice. Too bad. Try again. I don't want that little child. I want her to really, really mindfully go at my pace. Good girl. Okay. That one was her really good one. Let me do one more rep. This is very pre-Mackie, insofar as there's something that up until now in her life, if you want to acquire a toy, a stick, food, anything on the ground, the way you do it is you just make forward motion towards it. I'm flipping all that on its head. So this is fantastically counterintuitive for dogs. Let me get her a little closer. So there we go for our start. And we start walking. The leash is loose. Oh, too bad. That was her error. Good girl. It's loose. I keep moving. Okay, good girl. And you notice that time her latency was a little bit better. It took me fewer tries to get there. She was also less frustrated because it was becoming clear to her. So don't give up if your first few trials are ugly. It can be. For you, this is very much about your cause and effect timing. As soon as the leash is taut, don't say, oh boy, I really wanted her to win that one, I'll just fudge it. That's disaster. You're just going to go downhill. The best thing you can do is be actually a little bit, it's going to feel mean. Go back to start if in doubt. Only keep going if the dog is very carefully minding their P's and Q's and keeping that leash loose. Do a final repetition. Here we go. I know it is there. Standardize my leash length, get it against, oh, it's tight, so we go backwards. There we go. Get a nice clean start. Uh-oh, she's looking a little impulsive. Too bad for you. And that's really, this is hard for dogs. So I do sincerely commiserate with her because this is just too bad. That's too bad. That's terrible for you. We hate it when that happens. But dogs cope with this. This is part of life. Not everything happens. If you chase a squirrel, it runs away. Good girl. Oh, too bad. She said, oh, she thought she had a bird in the hand. I'm really making my point. You notice how I'm doing this. I'm not trying to walk quickly to help her win. She learns just too bad. She learns just as much from not winning. What I want is a dog that's going to fit well into society. And generally speaking, that means a dog who is very circumspect. For lack of a better word, too bad. That actually built a circumspect dog. Actually preempted what was going to be a tight leash. That's very thought policey timing. Good girl. Too bad. Here we go. Too bad. I'm very, very strict on this one. Too bad. I know it's a terrible thing. I know. There we go. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, too bad. It's a terrible thing. You could die. Okay. As soon as she stops barking, I can initiate the reps. Good girl. Okay. Okay. Yes. She did really well on that last one. These impulse control exercises are mechanically difficult. There's the noticing of brief flashes of yes, that's it, the cancellation of rewards, that the faster you are, the faster your dog learns. You might feel that your mechanics are a limiting factor. But don't worry, there are no lethal mistakes here, provided you're not practicing wait at the front door. Like accumulation of sand on a scale, the preponderance of the time, he's learning that the impulsive speed game doesn't work, but the hold back, resist temptation, counterintuitive strategy of impulse control does work.